think the core of the problem is still the fact that greed runs the world? Yeah. There's no justice for the climate if there's no justice for all. Yeah. Warning, this show contains upfront and unfiltered opinions. I'm Salber, and I'll be chatting to a bunch of young people to hear what they've been up to as they deal with this mess of a planet we have inherited. Thank you, parents. We'll be diving into the environment, climate change, the psychological repercussions we have been experiencing, the dreams, the dread, the humor, the hope. Oh my God. Now, what next? Let's meet today's guest. Today's guest is a Berlin-based Zimbabwean born and raised actor and content creator. A New York University alum, having studied in Abu Dhabi, New York, Shanghai, and Sydney, she works across live performance, film, and video, collaborating with various artists and companies globally. She's also the host of this show. Surprise, it's me, Salber Lee Williams. I'm going to be in the hot seat today, and Matt, our technical producer, is going to be interviewing me. I'm not yet sure what about, but let's get into it.
How are you, Salber? How are you feeling?
A little nervous to be on this end of things. How are you doing?
I'm equally nervous.
Great.
Let's get into it. So I think firstly, everyone's been watching these episodes and we've seen some amazing guests, but we all want to know a bit more about you. What's your journey been up to this point?
I was born in Zimbabwe and I grew up there. Fast forward.
You have stolen my dreams.
Left Zimbabwe when I was 18 to study theater, and my focus was acting.
I'm acting.
With a couple of courses in the sciences.
There's science.
I burn when I'm creating, I burn for that. And so I thought, okay, where's a place that I can move to where a lot of people are creating a lot of interesting stuff and it's still affordable to live? Berlin was a good option.
They have this incredible club called Berghain. There's an ice cream parlor as well in this club.
So then I moved to Berlin.
Amazing. I mean, this show is about climate change and about what we're all doing to try and, manage the flames. How do you think it changes from country to country where you've been, the attitudes towards climate change and even just the climate conversation?
There's a massive difference from what I've observed. From where I come from, for instance, they have a lot of other things that they're concerned with or about. A big priority is what do we eat today? And so it's difficult when you have the weight of your existence on your back to sit down and engage in conversations like the ones that we have the privilege of having, with this show. But it's also I don't want to negate the fact that there are people on the ground there doing good work. And
Sure.
there are a lot of sustainability movements, especially in the agricultural sphere, that are looking for sustainable ways of farming, etc. The work is being done. It's just not on the same level as I've seen it in more privileged spaces, because we are granted with education, one, and two, time to, first of all, have the tools to tackle a problem.
Beautifully put. Yeah, I think it's very poignant. And from working on Now What for the past, 6 months, even actually to conception, we were talking about this last year. What are the general messages you've absorbed from the conversations you've been having with our guests?
Difficult. So many various conversations and lots of gems in every single one of them.
And it seemed to me like there's a general, like, a frustration. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's an urgency in the conversations, a very palpable sense of we need to do something now, and we are doing something now. Like, everyone I've spoken to is the founder of or one of the big voices behind a movement, very passionate about the fact that we can all do something, that our single voice matters, and just being aware that there's so many people in every field working towards, in their special way, reversing climate change or slowing it down. Of course, there's a sense of defeat because legislatively things seem to be taking a lot longer than they should be. But there's a sense of hope. I feel like you have to have hope, otherwise you won't get the ball rolling. You need to believe that that one little thing you do today is making a difference, or else you won't get up tomorrow and do the same thing.
Is there a moment in the show so far, with the different guests we've had, that has truly shocked you?
Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us.
Yeah, I'm remembering my reaction multiple times, being like, whoa.
And you know what? What was that?
There were a number of times when guests like dropped statistics that I kind of knew or had generally heard of, but the numbers were shocking.
700 billion and $1.3 trillion.
Hearing the numbers made the problem more real.
So far, working on the show, what do you think has been the thing that's disappointed you most from the conversations that we've been having?
I heard again and again the fact that there's a legislative barrier that just doesn't seem to be speaking the same language as a lot of the guests that we've had. You see all these individuals with hope, passion, urgency, a sense of urgency, and they're held back almost, not almost, they are held back by the fact that they can only do so much before having to wait for some legislation to be passed. I would say that's a massive disappointment.
In terms of what you've been talking about with guests and where we've been on this journey, what's leaving you hopeful?
From the show, I'd say the fact that, there are so many styles of and like timbers of voices in the conversation about climate change. Like, it's not just the founders of startups that are inventing new technologies and changing the way the fashion industry operates or the plastic industry, which is also super cool. But it's also like, what role do the arts have in this conversation? And talking to people who are poets.
Oh, you're right. And it's nice that there were those nuggets of kind of optimism.
I wanted to say, like, last week in Paris, the United Nations Environmental Program also met with like 170 countries, like reps from 170 countries. And they have this plan of action now to reduce plastic waste, because if we continue to use the same amount of plastic, if the system stays the way it is, it'll triple by 2060. And only a fifth of that will be recycled.
My God, wow.
It feels late, but at least it's happening.
I guess for us, like being in a similar age bracket, and I think like I speak for both of us, but like a lot of our friends, you'd like to think are climate conscious at least. It feels like more our generation who is more concerned with this rather than the older generations. Like how do we get them to listen?
Here in Germany, we have Die letzte Generation. It's the last generation, and their activism is quite extreme in the sense that they glued themselves to the road but now they're actually like they're cementing themselves to the streets. And that is an extreme version of like trying to get people, legislation, policies to be like, policy change makers to be like, hey, look at the urgency of this.
Yeah, because you have Extinction Rebellion, or in London at the moment, Just Stop Oil have been, doing a lot of like peaceful protests, like I say, the gluing in the motorways. When my parents speak about that with me, they always come at it from a point of hostility towards those people, because they could be blocking an ambulance, or well, it's always inconvenient, but then this is not stopping. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, let's talk about the greater inconvenience, right?
I think we should have that conversation.
Surely it's more convenient for your great-grandchildren to have somewhere to live.
You want me to bring the receipt? Do I need to bring the receipt?
And I think like when you ask the question, like how do we get them to listen, it's also like breaking the them down, because like when we have a conversation with our parents, right, like that's one reaction, but it's like my mom and dad are not behind like the policies that need to be changed. And so there's always, I think the core of the problem is still the fact that greed runs the world. And a lot of people are just pushing their own agendas to maximize their profit margins. And there's a whole lot of greenwashing happening so that people are enabled to continue doing that, Yeah. The question is like, how do we make them listen? Like, how do we get them to take a seat or a step back and rethink their entire like understanding of the world and what profit means and all of that,
You're so right, because also like individually they are human beings working for these companies, and individually they will maybe have families, and surely it must run through their mind when they're going to sleep at night. What we're doing is fundamentally, accelerating then the demise of this planet.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure when we pitched this to you, you were like, okay, well, this question is definitely going to come up at some point.
Don't do it.
Salber, who do you think is the most evil corporation in the world?
I knew this was coming.
Let's talk about something else.
And I don't have an answer.
Come on, you got to commit.
You gotta commit, right? Yeah.
Twitter, Elon Musk, Amazon, Jeff Bezos. Bad.
They had it coming. They had it coming.
No, because it goes back to that thing of what I mentioned before. Like, people pushing their own agendas and profit margins. And that's responsible also for so many like social problems as well. And I could go on and on and on and on. But it's like, no, there's no justice for the climate if there's no justice for all.
To end on a lighter note, what would you love to fill your days with that brings you happiness, and what are you passionate about?
Movement. I cannot live without moving my body. The sun, I would love more sun, but I live in Berlin, so I'm enjoying the summer now.
Watch.
Music. Music and movement and good vibes and people. Good people.
No strangers to love. Know the rules, and so do I. A full commitment's what I'm thinking of. Get this from any other guy. I just wanna tell you how I'm feeling. Gotta make you understand. Never leave you out. Never let you down. Never run around. Desert you. Never gonna make you cry. Never gonna say goodbye. Never gonna tell a lie. Hurt you.
Locals dancing.